Since the dawn of humankind, when we first lifted our eyes to the sky and wondered who we were, one question has never left us. Why does evil exist? Why is it that among all forms of life, we, the most conscious species, are also the most destructive? We're the only beings who love and hate, who cry and kill, who dream of paradise and build hells. Human nature is a living duality, light and shadow, instinct and spirit, reason and despair. But how did we get here? Where did this mixture of greatness and brutality come from? To understand evil, we must look back to the beginning of our story, not the biblical beginning, but the beginning of the tribe, of fire, of survival. The birth of Homo sapiens, the being who thinks and therefore suffers. When the first humans walked the African savannas, there was no concept of good or evil. There was only survival. There was fear. Fire, the hunt, the cold, the threat of predators, everything was a constant test. Anger and fear were born there as natural sparks, reactions to defend life. Envy, too, the desire for what another possessed, food, shelter, a mate, the power of the group. These primitive emotions were neither good nor bad. They were simply the raw language of life trying to continue. But something changed when humans began to look within. When self-awareness appeared, it brought with it the mirror, and with the mirror, comparison. That was when the true conflict began. We stopped fighting only for survival and began to fight for meaning. Over time, we learned to organize ourselves. We built villages, herds, agriculture. And with stability came possession. This is mine, that is yours. The land became territory, and territory became power. It was in the search for meaning and in awe before the mystery that religion was born, one of humanity's most beautiful and also most dangerous creations. In its origins, religion was pure poetry. The man who watched lightning and felt the sacred, the woman who saw the birth of a child and recognized the miracle. It was the mystery before which the heart kneels. But with time, the sacred became institutionalized. What was once a direct relationship with mystery turned into hierarchy, law, and fear. God ceased to dwell in the heart and began to dwell in temples. And the fear of punishment was used to dominate. Faith, which could have liberated, became a tool of obedience. It is important to say evil is not in faith itself, but in the manipulation of faith. It lies in those who perceive the power that comes from ruling consciousness. And that manipulation runs through all of human history, from crusades to dictatorships, from medieval pyres to today's digital campaigns. Then came the invention of an artifact that would forever change the course of humanity: the birth of money. The moment when we stopped exchanging real things and began exchanging symbols of value. Money was a brilliant and dangerous invention, because symbols have no limits and neither does human desire. Suddenly, value was no longer found in bread, water, or shelter, but in quantities of metal, paper, and numbers. Evil found a new home: greed. Accumulation replaced abundance. And the idea of wealth, which could have meant collective well-being, became a measure of domination. Power has always known how to disguise itself. At first it was physical, the strongest ruled. Then it became spiritual, political, economic. Today it is psychological. We live in an age where domination is no longer enforced by swords, but by distractions. The modern empire is the empire of attention, and its army is our own emotions. Yuval Harari once said, "Humans are the only animals that believe in fictions and die for them." And that is what keeps evil alive. The the stories we believe without questioning. From ancient myths to modern political and religious narratives, humanity has always been guided by convenient fictions, and it is through them that power operates. The story changes its names, but the mechanism remains the same. Fear, division, reward, and punishment. The ancient kings promised paradise. The modern ones promise comfort and safety, but the result is identical: a people who obey without awareness. Evil, therefore, is not an occult force, but a state of collective unconsciousness. It is not in demons or elites. It is in every moment someone chooses ignorance over truth, selfishness over empathy, fear over clarity. And yet there is something profoundly beautiful about the human condition, because despite everything, we remain capable of loving, caring, creating. We are also the only beings who cry with remorse, and that is divine. The same mind that creates weapons, composes symphonies. The same hand that wounds can learn to heal. Human essence is paradoxical. Light and shadow coexist, but we are not condemned. Consciousness is the antidote. Evil flourishes in the absence of awareness and dies when the light of attention reveals it. We can change, but change does not mean destroying the world or fleeing from it. It means seeing with clarity. To forgive, not as forgetting, but as liberation. To learn from the past so not to repeat it. To realize that leaving the matrix is not disconnecting from reality, but reconnecting with truth. The matrix is not only technology, it is the sum of all the illusions we believe in, that we are separate, that the other is a threat, that happiness lies outside ourselves. To leave it is to awaken to unity, to recognize that the same breath of life that moves a star also moves our hearts. When we understand this, evil loses its throne. Anger becomes a force for change, pain becomes wisdom, fear becomes humility. The path of humanity is long and imperfect, but each act of awareness is a step in the right direction. And perhaps the great purpose of our existence is simply this: to remember who we are, so that the shadow no longer needs to teach us through suffering. Because in the end, good and evil are not enemies. They are merely two sides of the same quest, to understand what it means to be human. And as long as there is even one being capable of looking within and asking why, there will be hope. For it is in that moment of lucidity that evil begins to dissolve, not through combat, but through understanding. If you're still here, it's because you recognize the echo within these words. Perhaps it isn't faith, but remembrance, the memory that there is something greater within us than we believe ourselves to be. Within every human being dwells a silent force, the impulse to understand, to heal, and to be free. When that force awakens, we call it consciousness. The light you seek is not outside, but within you. And the brighter it becomes, the more it illuminates the world around you.
If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to know when we release new content. And share this video with those who need to hear this message. Gratitude for your presence in this vast universe.